Today's the day we solve some quadratic inequalities. We've been graphing quadratic equations, which give us the parabola, right? The only difference with quadratic inequalities is after you draw the parabola, you're going to have to do some shading. So there's some rules here as far as some shading, which they should make sense, because back in the day, you guys graphed linear inequalities when you were doing systems. So you had like y is less than 2x minus 3, and you would go down 3, and then to find your next point you'd go up 2 over 1, and you were like, oh, well, that's a dashed line, and it says less than, so that would be anything below the line. It's the same kind of idea today, except you're going to have these parabolas, and you're going to be shading either above the parabola, like this, or below it, which would be everything else. All right, so a couple things here. If you look at the steps here, which these will all be on the Google Slides, you graph the parabola, which we just did in this chapter. Use a solid line for the or equal to ones. So y is less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, you're going to use a solid line. But if it's just greater than or just less than, that's going to be a dashed line when you do your parabola. And then you shade above the parabola for greater than or equal to, which that makes sense, right? If things are greater, you go above them. And if it's less than or equal to, you shade underneath that parabola. So let's try it out. Graph y is less than negative 2x squared minus 4x plus 6. We can figure out all kinds of stuff from this parabola before we even graph it. We know that a is negative, so it's going to be an upside down parabola. We see that it says less than, so that means it's going to be a dashed line like this, right? And if it's less than, you're going to shade underneath that parabola. So it's going to look something like this. And that's good to know, especially right away, because then if you come up with something that looks nothing like that, you're like, oh, wait, I thought it was supposed to be upside down and shaded underneath. So let's graph this like we did earlier in chapter 2. Let's start with the axis of symmetry, negative b over 2a. So b is negative 4, a is negative 2. So we have the opposite of negative 4 is 4. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. 4 over negative 4 is negative 1. This is our axis of symmetry. So I'll scooch over here. There we go. Wow, okay, I'm going all over the place. Stop moving, Mr. Plant. Oh my goodness. It's just this kind of day. So negative 1 is here. That's our axis of symmetry. Now remember, to find the vertex, you immediately substitute that in for x. So we'll have negative 2x squared minus 4x plus 6. So negative 1 squared is 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. Negative 4 times negative 1 is positive 4. 4 plus 6 is 10 minus 2 is 8. So our vertex will be at negative 1, 8. So negative 1, 8 is up here. That's our vertex. Now remember, ordinarily, if it was just negative x squared, you could go down 1 over 1 both directions. But since we have negative 2 in the front there, we can go down 2 and over 1 in both directions. Down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1 the opposite way. So this gives us the shape of our parabola. So we can kind of draw our dashed line here. Woo! Don't get that confused with our axis of symmetry here. And then it said less than. That means shade underneath it. So underneath the parabola would be all of these points here. So we're going to practice this a bunch today. So buckle up and get ready.